So this next presentation is one that I can definitely identify with. Because there are times in life when you get asked certain questions and you have to give a certain answer and you know it's going to disappoint the person that asked the question. Being a Native American drag queen, I get a lot of these. So some of my disappointing answers include, no, I don't live in a teepee. No, I don't ride a horse to school. No, I'm not a real woman. And so this next presentation deals with giving one of those other disappointing answers. So this presentation is called No, I Don't Work at Pixar, Tales of a B-Movie Special Effects Artist with Kaiserian.
Can you hear me?
Are you ready, Alice?
I am ready.
Okay, go.
Okay, so in 1984, my dad brought home a Macintosh computer and my mother lost her mind. There was no application for computers in our lives at this time. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have cable TV, there were only 3 channels in Maine. Computer graphics had no place in our lives. I don't know if any of you remember the movie War Games. Computers were used for military applications and scientists. But Hollywood really changed our idea of what computers were useful for even before the internet happened. I know it's hard for you some of you to believe. But we went from 1988 with like creepy characters that no one could identify with and said these companies are going to fail, to 2009 where Avatar came out and people were blown away. So I knew I wanted in on this, but back then it was very cost prohibitive to set up your own shop in the garage, as we used to say, you know, when people had big computers. Now you can do it for about $1,300. You can download software or an app for your iPhone and make 3D graphics. But at the time, a little bit of a different story. So I decided this is something I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. And my mother's best friend sold light bulbs to the School of Cinematography. I'm not making this up. And she told me they're starting this new animation program for graduate school, and you've got to go. You've totally got the right, credentials for this. So I applied a week before school started, and I got accepted. The riots had just happened. I was there in time for the earthquakes. That was awesome. So things really were changing while I was in school, which is good. The movie Toy Story came out, and when it came out, people said no one's going to watch this because computers are creepy, people don't identify with these characters. We want the Lion King, what is this computer stuff? But because Tom Hanks was the voice of Woody in Toy Story, I believe that this sold this movie, and it was a great story, and it was very successful, so we knew we had a future. I did not get to work on fun characters like that my first time around. I did a lot of background special effects for movies. We didn't work on the sexy aliens and Mars Attacks, we worked on Little Flying Saucers and back then. But it was still really exciting. I got my first movie credit on Mars Attacks. And in Eraser, my best story about Eraser was that you don't even know what you saw us do. They had a company called Cyrex that sold guns to terrorists. And 2 weeks before the movie came out, Cyrex Corporation called Warner Brothers and said, we're going to sue the pants off of you if you release this movie. So we changed all of the X's to Z's. It cost them $5 million, and it took us 7 years. So that company sadly closed its doors to bankruptcy, and I went to work on Godzilla, and I spent every day for 7 months working on Godzilla, and I mean all day, every day, Monday through Sunday. We would drive around LA and see people at breakfast and be like, what are they doing? Don't they have to go to work? So after that, my whole team, literally, we were like, screw this, we're going to Hawaii to work for this company. We don't even care what movie they're making. And the movie was this movie called Final Fantasy, and it was going to blow everybody's minds. It was going to be the first photorealistic human animated movie. You weren't going to be able to tell that these were digital characters. Sadly, this was not the case. So in robotics, there's a thing called the uncanny valley. When something is humanoid, you really like it. Like a puppy has big eyes like a baby, you think it's cute. And then when it's perfectly human, you think it's really cute. And if it's in between those two things, you're like completely repulsed by it. And that was, unfortunately, Final Fantasy in a nutshell. It cost $400 million to make. It made $11 million opening. But before we knew it was a failure, Tom Hanks came out and said that we were stealing roles from actors and we should be ashamed of ourselves. So it is appropriate that the next movie I worked on had Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks. And he actually played another part in the movie that I couldn't find a picture of. He stole roles from children. He played that child. I wanted to say. successful computer animated movie with the humans, and it is like the creepiest thing you've ever seen. But it had Tom Hanks in it, so it was really successful. So if you want to sell something, have Tom Hanks be in it or make it about Christmas, because people will buy it. That's what I learned from that particular experience. Things got a little bit sexier in my life. We got to do, now I was like the mocap animated girl, like she'll do anything with people in it. So I got to head up, this was a big deal, I got to be lead animator on Grendel's mother in the movie Beowulf that none of you probably saw. And we had to hide her breasts with gold so that we could get, I think it was an R rating. And then the next movie, we had the story of Dr. Manhattan. So Billy Crudup plays a scientist who gets incinerated in an atomic reactor, and he recreates himself as this giant, hulking blue guy. And they showed us this character that we're going to be animating, and he was going to be naked for very important story points, I promise. And they show us this naked picture, and I'm like, well, he's really big, but not everything's so big.
Oh my God.
So they actually listened to me and went to Warner Brothers, and the executives had a meeting about the size of Dr. Manhattan. Note to go out on, because as I mentioned, or maybe George mentioned for me, no, I didn't work on The Matrix, which was awesome. I worked on The Matrix 2, which was not awesome. And LA was getting kind of old, traffic smog, 20 people, the whole thing. So I cashed in my chips at that point. And sadly, also to mention, 5 of the companies I worked for closed their doors. So this has become sort of a problem. While Life of Pi was winning an Academy Award this year for cinematography, which was, by the way, entirely digital, they did not mention the effects house that worked on it. And that company was closing its doors as the Oscars were happening. So it was really sad. So now, and we're not unionized, so effects workers are just basically screwed. But so they started this sort of awareness, and there was a picket at the Oscars, and I think it's changing, but sadly most of the industry is moving outside of the United States. And so I moved to Maine, that's. So, but I do have some good stories. Before everyone was on Facebook, having some searchability, or I was Googleable on the internet before Facebook, which is I have an IMDb page, which people seem to think is really cool. And I got to, determine the size of Dr. Manhattan's penis, so that was...
I would now like to take the opportunity to shamelessly promote my new animated Christmas movie starring Tom Hanks, which will be released later this year.